Hey guys, this is Bill from Windance Board Shop in Hood River, and one of the questions that we get a lot from kiters is which bar is compatible with what kites? And for the most part, any bar that's got board lines of equal length will work on pretty much every kite. However, there's differences in the performance of the kites, and one of the ways is there's a low Y and a high Y, and what that refers to is the split of the front lines. Does it occur down low or does it occur up high? Some manufacturers have gone to a real high Y, and what that does is that tensions the canopy. So as the kite is looping and turning, it tensions the canopy a certain way so that it flies more appropriately. If on certain kites, especially the duotone kites, if the Y is low, their kites don't like to fly very well because the canopy isn't tensioned correctly. So what I thought I'd do is go through a couple of the manufacturers, some of the more popular ones, and kind of show you what they have going on and see what's kind of applicable, as well as maybe go over a couple items to kind of keep your bar in good shape. First one we'll start out with is the Core Pro Sensor 3 bar. And this one is considered, it's not a low Y, but it's kind of a lower mid-high Y. So about 20 feet in front of you is where the Y actually splits. A lot of core kites tend to prefer that type of tensioning. However, I've seen core kites fly on all sorts of different bars, but I do know that having an actual core bar with a core kite does perform better. It also works, I've used it on slingshot kites, I've used it on F1 kites, I've used it on all sorts of kites. It seems to fly pretty good on most of the kites that I have flown it with, and without much notice. Moving on, we have an F1 bar, and it's also kind of in the same range as the core. It's got kind of a lower mid-high Y split in the lines. And I know that the Bandit in particular really likes that kind of setup. Also, it'll fly pretty much on any kite. I haven't noticed much problems with it either. The one area where I do notice it is, this is the old duotone, or what they used to call the old North bar. And duotone in particular uses a very high Y in their system. And I know from experience that the duotone kites really want to be flown with the North or the duotone bars because of that high Y. A lot of other kites will fly somewhat okay using this bar, but there are some kites that will not fly particularly well because they're designed with that lower Y in mind, which is like the slingshot bar is a low Y. Your Nash bars are a low Y. Your new North bar is a low Y. So all those systems are applicable to go amongst those kites altogether. The one exception is kind of in the Cabrina lineup. They used to have a higher Y. They eventually, I think in 2016, 17, I believe, they went to a low Y system. And I think, if I remember right, they went back to having a higher Y in their bar lineup. But I haven't flown a lot of Cabrina kites, to be super fair to Cabrina, so I'm not sure which bars are completely compatible with that or not, but I imagine most of the bars will be compatible. The only one exception would be maybe the duotone bar. Now, to get to a little bit of maintenance, I recommend if you kite a lot, I recommend getting a new bar every 2 years. Because you can change out the lines, but everything starts to kind of have a wear and tear to it. And so someone just brought this in from demo, and you can see it's like dirty, it's got sand and crud all over it. I would cringe at this. you don't know if this thing is going to get stuck with some mud, some sand in there, and then this release won't work out. In this case, the North systems are pretty good, but always dunk it when you're done kiting or whatnot. Just give it a good flush and get all this sand and grit, because that sand gets on your lines and it just kind of thrashes out the lines, and so they'll start to fray out quicker than normal. And just going over and looking at your lines, I usually take my lines out, stretch them all the way out, put them on like a nail or whatever, and when it's totally depowered, pull it in tight. And if all 4 lines are tensioned correctly, they should, right when you pull it tight, all 4 lines should be nice and taut. If you have some lines that are sagging, usually it's going to be your power lines, your front 2 lines, then you'll probably need to pigtail the other lines to make sure the line lengths equal up. Otherwise, you'll get some stalling and some other performance issues with your kite. And usually at that point, I usually recommend just get a new bar, or at least get some new lines to go on that, because that's the only thing connected from you to the kite. So why go through the process for a couple $100 when you can be safe? So that's kind of just a short rundown of the bar compatibilities. Pretty much they're all fairly compatible. The one exception being maybe the duotone bar, which is privy for the duotone kite. So anyway, if you have any questions, call us here at Windance Board Shop. We'd be more than happy to answer them.